What's going on, guys? Stefan and a sleepy Maverick here with you in Essenes Garage. Today we are in the Mrs. 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee. We are just on our way back from a drive. We had to run to the store, and we were greeted here with a check engine light. So what we have here is our X-Tool D8. This is the scan tool that we use here on the channel. And we are going to go ahead, and we're going to prop the kickstand open here, like so. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to scan for codes and see what we got going on here. One thing that I have noticed is recently, more specifically, my coolant gauge, my engine temperature has not been going up to mid-mark where it usually is. So I'm thinking I might have a thermostat issue. Like I said, this started like last week and it just coded up now, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. But let's kind of see where we're at. And this is just something as a trained mechanic, you start to notice things like that. So let's go ahead. We're going to go into our scan tool here. We're going to go to auto scan. It's going to go ahead and communicate with the car. Here we have a 2015, like we said. We're going to do automatic scan. Before auto scan, please start the engine. So we have the engine running. We're going to go ahead and scan it. Let's see what we got. So we got our one failure in the powertrain control module. Let's just let it, finish doing its scan, and we'll be back with you as soon as we have our code. Alright guys, so here we are on our D8, and we have one code. So let's go to DTC report. And just as I suspected, we have a P0128 thermostat rationality. Which basically means that the thermostat is stuck open and it's not allowing the engine to reach the thermostatic pressure, or temperature rather. Now I did some research. This car should have a 203 degrees thermostat. It was between 203 and 205 because they had it in Celsius. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go to Diagnose, and we are going to go to Live Data. Now this engine has been running since I parked it. And our gauge has sat right there. So let's go ahead and see exactly what our engine temperature is at very quickly to kind of see. Engine coolant temp. Here's engine coolant temp. We're sitting at 168 degrees. So that's telling me that this thermostat is stuck open. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to order a thermostat, we're going to order some coolant, and we're going to go ahead and tackle this job, get this thing fixed and going down the road. That way the wife has no problems. We don't want it breaking down on our boys. So stay tuned. It's going to be about 2 seconds for you guys, but whenever I get this thermostat in, we're going to rip right into it. Now I did very quickly just want to show you how to quickly diagnose this problem. So the P0128 indicates that the engine control computer is seeing data from the engine coolant temperature sensor that it doesn't like. It sees that it's not getting up to temperature fast enough. So a cause of this code could not only be a thermostat, it could be faulty readings from that coolant temperature sensor. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to let your car sit overnight, cold soak. Don't start it. You want it to be stone cold. And you're going to get your bidirectional scan tool out. In this case, like we said before, we used the X-Tool D8. And we're going to map all of our temperature sensors that this car has in the engine computer. And we're going to get them in a data stream. So you'll see we have engine oil temperature, engine coolant temperature, intake air temp, and ambient air temp. And you'll see that all four of these are within, a couple of degrees of each other. So when you see that they are all this close, you know that the plausibility of your coolant temperature sensor or the correlation, it's correlating its data with these other three sensors. So we know that without, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we can trust the data coming from this coolant temperature sensor to be accurate. Now, if you were to check this and your engine coolant temperature was at 38 degrees and the rest of these were at 59, then hey, maybe there's an issue with the coolant temperature sensor. Maybe we should put one of them in there first. But all you want to do is graph it. You want to correlate them. Make sure that all of your ambient temp sensors and your temperature sensors in general are correlating with what the coolant temperature sensor is saying after a cold soak. So this is a very quick and easy way to diagnose this code. We can now trust the readings coming from our coolant temperature sensor, and we can without a doubt go ahead and replace this thermostat. Alright guys, so we're back. Here we have our Mopar 5050 pre-diluted coolant, and we have our MAHLE thermostat. There's one thing I want to show you with this MAHLE thermostat. I did some research here, and I discovered that MAHLE is the original equipment supplier for this thermostat. If you'll look right here, the Chrysler part numbers that this thing is manufactured with are actually grinded off. But what I want you to pay attention to is that emblem right here on the front of the thermostat. Let's get you down there and show you the original thermostat that's in the car. And you'll see there's that exact emblem. So, save yourself the 40 bucks. Go to Amazon. I'm going to link this thermostat and this coolant in my video description below. If you buy from those links, the channel gets a small cut. We greatly appreciate that. But you're going to get an original equipment OEM thermostat for literally half the cost. And that's just the way I like to do things. I do some research, I figure out who the original equipment supplier is, and I buy it from them. You're buying OEM at a fraction of the price. So let's get you on the tripod, get into this, start taking it apart. Alright guys, so anytime you're doing any type of cooling system repair, you always want to start with a cold engine. So this engine is cold, it's cold soak, it's sat overnight. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and pull our plastic beauty cover off. Very simple, you just grab it from the front, pop it right up, and it comes right out. Now, depending on the way you're doing this repair, you might want to remove your air snorkel out of the way. This is an aftermarket, as you've seen in my other videos, so it's not exactly in the way, but I am going to go ahead and take it off just for the sake of the video so that you guys can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So if you have the original equipment one, it's going to be very similar to this. We're just going to loosen these two clamps, and there's two bolts under here on this unit. If you have the original equipment, I don't believe those bolts are there, but we're just going to go ahead, move this out of the way, and it'll show us the top of the thermostat. Those are loose. Let's get under here with a 10 mil, get them off. Two. And as you'll see in my other videos, I like to put my hardware up there. Now we can go ahead, take this hose off, and we're just going to go ahead and move it out of our way. So we're going to rest it right up here, like so. So now we can see the top of our thermostat. Let me move you in there. Alright guys, so this is going to be our thermostat here. One thing I want you to notice, it's at the very top of the engine here. So if you've just recently serviced your cooling system like us, you're not going to have to drain the whole thing. So all we're going to do, again, we're starting with a cold engine. We're going to come over here. We're going to open our radiator cap very slowly, just in case it's under pressure. If it's cold, it should not be. Okay, you're going to set that aside. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find the drain, and we're going to drain the radiator just a little bit. We're not going to drain the whole thing. We really don't need to. We're just going to drain it so that the coolant level drops below where the thermostat is, and then we're going to pull the thermostat off. So let's find the drain. I'll show it to you. I'll show you how we're going to drain it. Alright guys, so that's going to be our coolant drain right here. Right underneath it, you'll see there is a little nipple. So what I'm going to do is I have a small length of hose here. I'm going to connect it to that nipple and route it underneath the splash shield of the car so that the coolant doesn't just puddle in that shield. And like I said, we're not going to drain the whole thing, but we're going to get it down below this level so that we don't make a mess when we pull this off. So here you'll see the hose we ran. It goes right there, comes right down here, right into our splash pan. As so, we're just going to move it so it is in the splash pan and not next to the tire. So now it's in the pan, and we're going to go ahead, crack that red drain open, and we're going to let it start draining. So I find it easiest to just use a nice pair of pliers to loosen this radiator petcock. You'll hear it start draining. So like I said, we're just going to let this drain for a little bit. Once it's at a decent level, or what I feel is a decent level, we'll get right back to you. We're going to take this clamp off, and then this is just held in with two 10mm bolts. It'll come right out. Guys, so we went ahead and drained what I would consider enough out of this radiator to prevent us from making a huge mess. So now we're going to go ahead and use our pliers. We're going to pull this clamp here off, like so. Sometimes these clamps are a little tricky, so just watch your fingers. And we're going to work the hose off. There it is. Sorry, truck driving by. This hose does not want to cooperate. We're making it. There we go. And now I like to just kink the hose like this so that it's not going to make a huge mess. We're going to keep it up. Now we're going to go ahead and get a 10mm. We're going to pop both of these bolts here out. There's number one. Here's number two. We made a little bit of a mess, but not too much. So let me go get that new thermostat. Like I said, I want to show you guys that this thermostat is literally exactly the same. So as I mentioned, this is the thermostat that we got from MAHLE. And here's our original equipment thermostat. You'll see that the markings are identical. And here where you have the Chrysler insignia and the OEM part number, it's ground out and all you see is made in Mexico. So this MAHLE thermostat that we literally paid half of what the dealer wanted for a new thermostat is the exact same part. Save money, shop smart, do some research. That's what we did. Hopefully our research can help you guys save some money. So let's go ahead. We're going to slip this into place. You want to make sure that the bleed screw is facing up. We're going to grab our hardware here. We are going to get these started. We're going to very lightly run them down with our impact gun, and then we're going to grab our torque wrench and torque it to 9 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link for my Amazon affiliates page below, where we have all kinds of, shop tools, mechanics tools, things like that. If you need one, feel free to hop on there and buy one. Like I said before, if you buy from my store or my link, the channel does get a small cut, and we greatly appreciate that. So let's go ahead, get our torque wrench, torque that down. Guys, this is our 3/8 torque wrench. You'll see we have it set to 9 foot-pounds. So we are just going to go ahead and very carefully until it beeps. There's 9. We're going to do the same to the bottom. Done. Alright, now that's torqued, we can go ahead and very carefully put our lower hose, our upper hose back on the thermostat, like so. Move it all the way up to the stops. Put our clamp back on. Like so. Clamp is really one of the trickiest parts. Alright, clamps back on. So now what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to get a flathead screwdriver. We're going to open this bleeder, and we're going to set up our spill-proof radiator funnel. And we're going to go ahead and fill this thing up, start it up, bleed it. So let's go ahead, let's get that set up. I'm going to put the intake tube back on, and we'll take it from there. Alright guys, so as you'll see here, we have our spill-proof radiator funnel set up on the radiator with the correct attachments. It'll come with all the adapters if you buy one of these for just about anything you could use it on. And we went ahead and took our bleed screw here off of our new thermostat. And I figured I'd get this on video before I put the snorkel on so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. We're going to go ahead and fill this radiator with coolant until we start to see coolant bubble out of the thermostat. Once that happens, we're going to put that bleeder screw back in, and we're going to fill up our spill-proof funnel about a half of the way. So that's right where we want this. So we'll go ahead and put this back on. Snug it up. And now we're going to finish filling the radiator. Alright, let's get the snorkel back in, fire it up, and we'll show you how we bleed it. Alright guys, snorkel's back in. You'll see we got some coolant in our funnel. We're going to go ahead and start the truck, and we are going to monitor our coolant level in our spill-proof funnel until we can confirm that the thermostat opened. The best way to tell that the thermostat opened is to lightly touch both radiator hoses. When the thermostat opens, they should both be hot. So let's go ahead and fire it up, see what we got. You'll see our coolant level hasn't changed much. We're just going to let this run. We're going to monitor it, and I'll be right back with you. I'll show you as soon as we know when the thermostat's open, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so we've been running for about 5 minutes or so. You can see, and you can't see, but I can feel the lower hose is starting to warm up. Upper hose is still cold. This thermostat should open around 200, 205 degrees. I think it's 90 degrees Celsius is the technical degrees that it opens at. So whatever that converts out to be in Fahrenheit, that's when it opens. So we're just going to go ahead and keep monitoring this, and we're going to wait for this upper hose to heat up. Once that upper hose is hot, we're going to go ahead, take this spill-proof funnel off, put our radiator cap back on. Off camera, I just went ahead and took the hose, and I hosed off the front of the engine and my splash shield down here, because I did get a little bit of coolant in there from when we pulled the thermostat out, so I just went ahead and rinsed that off. So that's all good. It's just a waiting game now. This is the longest part of the job. The thermostat's the easy part, letting it warm up, making sure you bleed it right, and making sure the thermostat is operating right is going to take longer than doing the actual job, unfortunately. Alright guys, so we're at the point now where our lower hose and our upper hose are at about the same temperature. So you're just going to very lightly squeeze your upper hose. You're going to look for air bubbles. If you don't have any air bubbles like we don't, you can go ahead and take your spill-proof funnel out. So what we're going to do here, we're going to put our little plunger in. We're going to pull our funnel out very carefully because this stuff is pretty hot. Take this off. Put our radiator cap back on, and we're just going to dump our extra right into the overflow bottle. Go ahead and stick our beauty cover back on. So, and we're done. So before, you guys saw in the beginning of the video, we were only able to get up into about 167, I think, degrees it was. Now we're sitting pretty, engine coolant temp, right at 217 degrees. Like I said, this thermostat will open at 205. Right now our cooling fans are coming on. The air coming out of it is warm. We know the cooling system is doing its job. So we're gonna go ahead and call this job complete. So if this video helped you fix the 3.6 liter V6 engine of your Jeep Grand Cherokee, your Dodge Durango, or whatever else they put the 3.6 in, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to add a list of all the tools with the links down below that we used. I'm going to add a link to the thermostat we used and the coolant we used. Like I said earlier, if you do buy from those links, it helps the channel out, so we greatly appreciate that. But with that being said, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.